Happy Sabbath! Welcome to Sabbath School.
Happy Sabbath and welcome to Sabbath School. This morning we're going to read the story of the master fisherman. Some years ago I stood on the shore of Lake Galilee and I watched the fishing boats come in. It was early in the morning and the sun was rising over the eastern hills, throwing a golden glow upon the dark, still water. Then through the mist came the little boats, first one and then another. They were steering for the jetty at Tiberias, where they, at last, would all be tied up. I walked on the jetty and I looked in the boats. Some of them had a few fish in them, but some didn't have any. The fishermen hadn't had a very successful night, and I couldn't help thinking of that morning long ago when Jesus stood at that very place. That was when Peter and his friends had also had a bad night's fishing. Not a single bite. They didn't have one fish in their nets. Coming ashore, they had just begun to wash their nets and get ready for the next night's fishing when they noticed Jesus coming toward them, followed by a crowd of people. As Jesus got closer to the water's edge, the crowd pressed closer and closer until he was in danger of being pushed into the lake. Seeing a boat up on the shore, he stepped into it and asked Peter, who was standing nearby, "Please shove it out a little ways." So Peter gladly did so, and Jesus sat down and taught the people right out of the ship. What a beautiful scene that must have been, the little boat rolling back and forth, the sails flapping idly in the breeze, the bright morning sunshine lighting the lovely countryside and mixing a million diamonds in the tiny waves. On the beach sat scores of men and women, old and young, rich and poor, looking eagerly into the face of Jesus.
How do you love these people?
All these people listening to the stories. They were waiting for him to tell them all these stories, and they were very excited. In front of them, they had a couple of little girls paddling in the water and a boy trying to float a little boat that he cut from a piece of wood. But even they were listening, looking up now and then as Jesus would smile at them. How long Jesus spoke, we don't know. And at last, however, he told the people it was time for them to go. Then turning to Peter, he said, "Launch out the boat into the deep and let your net down. Let the nets down for a draught." Peter looked at him in surprise. Didn't he know nobody went fishing during the day? He might be a wonderful teacher, but Jesus must surely not be a very good fisherman. "Master," he said, "we've toiled all night and we haven't gotten any fish. We have nothing to show for our night's work." He had no hope of catching any fish at this time of the day, but he was willing to do anything to please this good man. So he and his friends hauled up the anchor and they pushed the boat out and they began to row out further into the water. They didn't go too far. It didn't seem really worth that time, so after a while they went out and they dropped in the nets. I'm sure there must have been a smile on Jesus' face as he did this, because he knew what was going to happen, and pretty soon they would find out he wasn't such a bad fisherman after all. Meanwhile, the men sat around wondering how long they should wait before pulling in the net. They didn't want to do it too soon because that wouldn't seem very polite. How long they left it in the water, we don't know. But by and by, Peter said, "Okay, we better bring it in now." So they started hauling in the ropes. Suddenly, their eyes opened in astonishment. They saw fish swirling around in the nets. The net was so heavy, they'd barely pulled it even a few inches, and it was full of fish. And so it was. Peter said, "Look out, the net's breaking. We're going to need some help." As nice and strong as these nets were, they were splitting right before their eyes. "Help," they cried excitedly to fishermen in another boat. "Come help us. We got to get all the fish." So they began to get help and they started pulling the fish into both boats, and it was so full that both boats started to take on water and begin to sink. With water lapping over the sides of the boats, the men rowed for the shore, and when they got there, what do you suppose they did? They forgot all about the fish and the nets and the boats, and they fell on their knees before Jesus. And Peter said, "Depart from me humbly, for I am a sinner." And Jesus said, "Fear not, from now on you shall be fishers of men. Follow me." And so they did, and this is how Jesus and his disciples first began working together. The first miracle was on the water, catching fish.
Hi everyone, happy Sabbath. Primary, your memory verse is, "Teach me to do your will, for you are my God." Psalm 143, verse 10.
In the beginning, when the world was young, God created all things and said they were good. The sun was new, the moon was new, God created all things, and he said yes, just as I wanted. But people began to disobey God. They started to follow their own ways. They were wicked. They pushed each other down in the mud and laughed. They stole each other's favorite stuffed animals and ran away with it. All the thoughts of every person was evil all of the time. God was tired and his heart was grieved. He was sad for all the hurt that was done by all of man's wickedness, and he said, enough! I must be done with this. I will send a flood and end all of this wickedness. But there was one man named Noah who still honored God. He was righteous. He loved God, prayed to him every day. Noah had a wife. She was righteous as well. Noah and his wife had 3 sons, and the 3 sons had wives. All of these people were still following after God. So God said, yes, while all the wickedness of earth has grieved me, I will not be done with all of humanity. I will not end all of life. No, we can start again. So one day when all the family was asleep, Noah woke up early in the morning. He arose and God called out to him saying, Noah, I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence. I am going to destroy them, but I want you to make yourself an ark.
What's an ark?
Oh, good question. An ark is a huge boat, but without any way to steer it, because you will be trusting in me. I want you to make it of cypress wood. I want you to make rooms in it, coat it with pitch inside and out so it will float. It will be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high, with a roof and with a window on top.
Okie dokie.
Good answer. It's going to be a lot of work. Indeed it was. Noah and his sons and their wives and Noah's wife all worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. They built the first level and the second level and the third level. All the while they were building, and the other people who lived in the area came by and said, Noah, what are you doing, you silly old man? What are you doing with this thing? Noah had to explain it was a boat. What is a boat? It's about time. It's about time for a flood, said Noah. And all the people jeered at him. They laughed. They laughed and scorned. And they pointed their fingers at him. They mocked him. They threw rotten tomatoes and eggs at him. But all the time, Noah and his family kept on working. The third level was finished. People grew tired of their mocking and went away. Every evening, Noah would come together with his family. Every evening. And say thanks to God. Thank Him for that day's work. Can you believe 125 years went by as Noah was making this ark with his sons? Other family members were helping, and through all that time there were disagreements, of course. But there were disagreements which were based in family love, so they got through. Well, one day, when they were nearly done, all the townspeople came out to laugh, as they liked to do. It was their only entertainment. Oh, Noah, how silly you are. You silly old bear, you. About that time, they heard rumblings from the forest behind them, like thousands upon thousands of footsteps coming their way. Oh, Noah knew what was coming, even if the townspeople did not. For God had told him that pairs of every set of animals were coming. 2 by 2, they came. Seals, evidently. Panda bears. Polar bears. Alligators. My goodness, 2 by 2 they came. 2 by 2, out of the way went Noah and his family so these animals could board the ark in an orderly fashion. 2 by 2, they came on and on and on until they were all loaded up. This was something that even the rowdy townspeople had never seen before, and they were confused, but they didn't have much time to consider it, because at that point, Noah heard from God, Noah, it is time for you and your family to enter the ark. So they entered the ark, and God Himself shut the door. And at that point, the rain started to fall. Slowly at first, but then faster and faster and harder. And even from the ground, the streams opened up and water came from underground. And the water came. And the great ark was lifted off of the foundation of the earth until it was floating and floated as the rain continued. 1 and 2 and 10 and 20 and 40 days. The rain fell and fell, and all of the wickedness from the earth was drowned. And all that was left were Noah and his family and the innocents, the animals. The rain stopped after 40 days. And then Noah and his family, as they cared for the animals inside, they waited. They waited patiently for the waters to go down so they may go back to land. 1 week and 2 weeks, and much time passed, much time passed, until it seemed that maybe there would be land to go to. So Noah opened up the window and released a raven to see whether the raven would find somewhere to perch or come back maybe with some evidence of land. The raven came back, but with nothing in its beak. After a little while, the water was settling further, and he again opened the window and released a raven, and it went out. The bird came back with nothing. Now a third time, he released a dove, and it left. And this time when it returned, it came with an olive branch in its mouth, showing that it had indeed found a tree. The water had gone down low enough. Very soon, Noah knew they'd be able to leave. A little more time passed, and again, he released a bird. But this time, the bird did not return, for it found a safe place to nest. And Noah now knew they could leave the ark. The door was opened. Noah came out, and his wife and sons' wives. They gave thanks to God. They prayed to God. And they said, Noah said, God, thank you. Thank you, for you have delivered us from the flood, from destruction. God at that point raised up from the ground, as it were, a rainbow as just a reminder. I will not flood the earth again, because God's heart is full of forgiveness, and He is full of patience. Noah and his wife and their children lived their lives and continued to honor God. And God, we have learned from this story, God's patience and love for us. We thank you, children, and hope you have a good Sabbath day. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. See you all next week. Bye.